how many players do we need during the January transfer window?
3.
I think we all agree left back.
Left back, Andre Horta, or like some sort of creative player maybe. And then I would get rid of Doi and I'd bring in another central defender if that's what they want to do in the end. But yeah, that's my opinion. Martial?
The left back for me is needed, but is not needed over Ortega, but over Apostolopoulos.
Yeah,
I would be okay if Athanasiou comes in January to get over Apostolopoulos for like 10 games in the league, maybe one in Europe, depending on the schedule. Endoy needs to leave for me, but I don't think it needs to be replaced. And we would need someone to be playing over Basuras. He's the one that we need to replace. Like, we need a winger, but we don't need. I think we need a starting winger, or we would need someone that would fill into the gap created by both Velde not being up to expectation and Masuras being everything but a football player. Like Masuras right now, the version of Masuras we've seen over the last week is not even playing over. I don't know. It's not even playing over Jeronimo Barales for Kalamata, man. It's not playing in Super League 2.
The level is so bad with
he's done mentally.
Awful.
He's done mentally.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think Masuras at this point is just I think Doi and Masuras look completely mentally finished, if that makes sense. Just I don't know.
It pains me to see Masuras like that because I have infinite love for the guy and the player itself, but we can't really afford to have a player that can't even score sitters like that. And at some point, I know it will probably unlock it, and I hope it will unlock it before the break, the Christmas break. But I don't know. We need to get rid of players if we bring someone else, and we need to be careful. If the winger we bring, we need to ask ourselves 2 questions: Is the winger way better than Bernich, and is the winger that needed over Papacanelos having playing time? That's the question I have.
But that's why I don't think we need a winger. I would go for something familiar like Andre Horta. I don't know how realistic it is to bring him in again in January, whether it's a loan with a permanent buy option in the summer or something like that. They can work it out. He's out of favor again at Braga. He's not really been playing the last few. Yeah, he's not really been playing much the last few games, and in Europe certainly not. It's almost ironic that he had a good start to the season at Braga. I think there were quite a few. There were 2 options in midfield that were injured too. So he was, he did have that playing time. He was playing well, and then he came to Karaiskaki and he made that mistake that led to one of the goals. And ever since then, it's kind of been a bit downhill for him. They have players returning from injury, and he's not really been playing. But my point is linked to what Martial said. I think that we got Gelson Martins as an option on the wing. As much as we know his issues with injuries from time to time, Willian's starting to finally get into, I wouldn't say form, but his fitness is going up, and we're starting to see improvement from him. There's Velde, who, like I said before, I think he will come into his own at some point during the season. Just needs to get his head straight. And then there's Papacanelos as well. And the Masura situation, I mean, you're talking about the club captain. Can say a lot of, you can have a whole discussion about whether he should have left in the summer and the reasons behind that. But we see that almost every season from him. There's a stretch of a month, 2 months where you're just thinking, oh my God, it can't get any worse. and then there's stretches of like a month, 2 months where he's just smashing it, like goals every game or every other game. So I'm expecting him to turn it around. But also, I mentioned Orta in particular because he can come in and replace Chiquinho on a day where Chiquinho needs a rest. He can play in that kind of position behind the striker in the hole. We saw him playing in phases of the Europa League, the Conference League final out on the left. So like you can deploy him in the same way you play Chiquinho in a wider role. So I think that's the kind of option that I would go for because it's familiar, and I don't think you need to go on another gamble like on a winger. That's when you already have players like Willian and Velder there, and you bought them for a reason in the summer, and you've got Papacanelos waiting in the wings, who's looked pretty decent whenever we've thrown him into action. So those are my criteria. Athanasiou is an interesting option. I think if he's not, if we have signed him, if it is a done deal, then I don't see why they don't just bring him in January. He's going to come in the summer. He's going to come back, and he's probably going to end up on loan again. So
he's competing against Ramon and Leidner, I guess, for backup left back.
Doran Leidner will be back in the summer. He hasn't really been playing much.
Ramon's back in the winter, I think, as well. In January, he comes back, right, Marcia?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think we should take away the winter market we did last season. It happened once. It won't happen again ever. We are not getting players like Horta, Gelson, Chiquinho, Carmo on the same month. Not possible, and we don't need that anyway. What we would need probably is praying for injuries to stop, and maybe one fix being the left back, because even if I appreciate Apostolopoulos, the fact that he came out of the B team finally after like a decade playing against farmers in the B team, I appreciate the guy, but someone like Athanasiou can really turn into a new Masouras if he comes in January. Someone like Pilios for AEK, for example. Like Pilios for AEK has been one of the most consistent player, and he came from Pasianina. So there is some solution you can find in Greek markets, such as Koutris, for example, in the past. And we need to find one for the left back. Being Greek would be better because for European list. If it can be Lykoyannis, then okay, but he's not going to come back from an UCL team in January anyway. So,
is he playing at Bologna?
Yeah, he's playing in the Champions League. He's not playing every day.
Athanasiou is like a perfect option too, because if offers come for Ortega in the summer, you can still sell him even if you have qualifiers, or you know what I mean. You have a backup who is capable, and he's only 23 years old. I thought he was older. He's like 23, decent profile.
He's peaking. He's experiencing his first peak in his career.
I think it would be a good moment for him, and also then you can send Apostolopoulos to Kalamata or something. I don't know where.
The Malakia is Koutris.
Yeah, but he needed to go have his career, I guess.
Yeah,
it's like on the resource as well. Like
we fucked. I don't know. We screwed the pooch on that one hard, but Apostolopoulos for me is good, like third left back option. He was great last season, man. Like whenever we like really needed him, he came in, he did a job against AEK, against Aston Villa. Like he came in and played in some big games, man. Like he's not at all like a player that can come in and play build up, like when we're in possession dominant in these kinds of games in Greece. I think if you put him into a battle and you're like, mate, you got to fight in this game, scrap, get involved, like tackles and just passion. I like his characteristics. I think he's a like decent player to have in the squad, but he's not like quality wise. He's not he's not that
nowhere
level.
near ready to.
No.
He needs to go develop maybe abroad to learn how to play. Like,
Maybe. He's not young anymore, by the way. Like, he's not young. Like, I think he's 22.
Yeah, so Athanasiou is what, a year older than him and played how many games in Super League? Like, right, versus Apostolopoulos.
It's too bad. It's too bad someone like Kousidis, for example, isn't a left back. Right? Because, sorry, it's very difficult to find a left back in January. And the question I've said in the WhatsApp group is that we need to be careful about what we've been doing with what we will do with the left back in January, because as it doesn't matter what we think of Ortega, he is the starting left back, and we can't afford to replace a starting left back in January. And finding a solution that will push Ortega to be better is very difficult too, because if you look at the past, we decided to bring I think it was only during the beginning of Tsimikas and Kutris together that the competition was working, but probably around 4 months, and then Martins decided for Tsimikas. But if you look at it, we had like Vinagre, it was shit. We had Ramon, he wasn't ready to be playing for us already. We had on the right side, we had Dreger. We had how many players did we sign that were supposed to be rotation, like emerging players, future solutions? Athanasiou is better than all of that.
Yeah, I agree.
For me.
These are safer bets just coming from the Greek Super League. They know the expectations. They know what they need to do.
Or maybe we're getting someone from Nottingham. Who knows?
But I also think like Martial has a point. If you look at the roster, we actually have a lot of left backs who will be around in come summer. Like you have Ramon, you have Leitner, you have Apostolopoulos. Like, do you really want to sign?
Mate, Martial pulls out some rabbits from the hat, mate. I mean, he mentioned Ivan Brinic a little earlier on. I don't know how many people in the chat actually picked that up. But
no, but the thing is, Martial's right. Like I was speaking in our group chat about this, like about the depth that Olympiacos has currently on the roster, and people are like, oh, you're full of shit. Like you know, Martin's era, we were deep, we had real good players, blah blah blah. Like that was a team that, you know, was deep and it had Fortunis or whatever. So kind of like I like going back to look at that team, you know, that we had. And it was like insane. The subs off the bench, Bruno Gaspar, Lovera, Avram at like 500 years old, Lazar, and like one other, and Benzia or something. And people are like, oh yeah, like we're like the team doesn't have quality this year. Like, you know, back in the golden age, like we were so good. And it's like, yeah, our fucking bench was like Lazar Angelovic and fucking Bruno Gaspar, and people are like, that was the golden age of Olympiacos. Like that's when we saw real ballers play. It's like, guys, we subbed on the 70th minute. We were just like, fuck it, game's over. Like Sergio Oliveira, like class player, Velde, who like for jokes, you know, like the depth we have is so much better this season. Like Yaramchuk, I know everyone shits on him and thinks he sucks. The guy's the starting striker of Ukraine and like banging in goals at Euros, and he's our third striker. You know what I mean? Like it's insane how much depth we have right now. I don't know if it's a byproduct of 5 subs where teams have deeper squads, maybe because you can make more substitutions. But like Marko Stamenic had a great game. Was it in Crete or against Kalithea?
Both.
And he's nowhere to be seen.
Good.
Nowhere to be seen. Like doesn't even get a chance to come in. And it's just like the depth. As soon as these pieces start clicking.